Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Mary Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good 30 here in Calgary, Alberta. Monday, January the 3rd. I'm happy to be here. This is Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights Abuse Prevention is up to 4 minutes to live streaming radio broadcast on Blog Talk. The room is just up right now. I had some trouble getting into the show here tonight. Had problems on my show with sound. So I don't know what's going, but it seems to me that Blog Talk Radio or it's my connection or something that's kind of messed up here today, but hopefully you'll be able to hear what I'm saying. I wanted to look at common traits of a dysfunctional family, looking at the normal family, traits of a normal functioning family, as well as looking at the common traits of a dysfunctional. Let's take a look at this tonight. And we finished up talking about the Canadian Resource Center for Victims of Crime last week. So I wanted to change the everybody for being here. I appreciate it. I'm not a counselor or therapist or anything like that. I pay to do my own Blog Talk Radio shows, really just to be a voice out, speak out against child abuse, to stand up for child rights, to, just get the stuff out and talked about, the issues of child abuse are not going away. And we really need to talk about this stuff in order to fix the problems. It doesn't do any good to keep shoving it under the carpet and pushing it all, behind a door, closing the door and locking it. Silence is the issue, and the more that society and everyone else wants to see this pushed under the carpet, the more we're going to see child abuse cases rolling in, because the problems will not be addressed, the situation will not change. We all have to start talking about this, right? So that's why I'm doing the shows, and I'm a survivor. It's important that we all do what we can, get involved, be a voice, for these kids out here. And I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dream Catchers for Abused Children, and that's a volunteer position that I just dearly love doing. And we're fighting to save kids' lives, right? So that's what I'm doing. And I just ask everyone to listen at your own discretion. The show topics of abuse, they're very sensitive, and if you feel the topic of you have to do for you, and so you have to listen at your own discretion. If you're comfortable or you just feel like you just can't listen to it, then it's clearly your choice, and you make a choice for yourself. And young people under the age of 18, I just ask that you have permission to listen to any of my shows, because there's a lot of adult content on my shows, and I think young people should actually have the right to be protected at all times, because you do. And so it's important that you know that you have the right to be protected at all times, and that you need to be just as proactive as anybody else, parents or caregivers or guardians or whoever's looking after you, that you would keep yourself safe when you're online. And there's a chat room present here, and anytime there's a chat room present, you do need to know how to keep yourself safe. And so, get that information. Just type into your browser, Internet Safety for Children, Online Safety for Children, right? It's so important. And I say this on every show because it's very important to me. So, excuse me, we'll get right into this. I'm just going to pop a link in the chat room to this particular article that I'm looking at. This is really quite interesting information here. This person has laid it out in this article. I just think it's really worth looking at and worth talking about. A very dysfunctional family. We are still just as dysfunctional as we ever were. Except for I'm on my healing journey, and everybody else in my family is just status quo. They're all pretending that nothing's wrong. What abuse? There was no abuse. Okay, everybody was a little crazy in our home. They will admit that, but they don't want to look at the truth of what the issues were, what actually happened in our home, and how dysfunctional it really was, and how dysfunctional it still is today. And they would probably admit that it was, but they're okay with it and happy with it, and I'm not. I'm on my healing journey, and I'm working to change these really ridiculous behaviors that our parents taught us from day one. And that was how to have a miserable life, how to be miserable and want to kill ourselves, and how to care about people, how to hurt other people, how to look after ourselves. That was the biggest one. And also how to not think that why. These were what our parents taught us. And, I've been working really diligently over the last 4 years, but especially the last 2 years, I'd say, last year and a half to 2 years, to try to change these behaviors and change the way that I was handling things, dealing with things, stressful events, throw me for a loop, stressful situations that, people would find stressful. And I didn't have the skills to work with. I did not have what I needed from my childhood, from my youth, growing up with the family that I did, to learn how to cope, right? So that's what I'm doing. I'm having to do it all from scratch, a long time, and had to have some help, some professional help, especially some good professional help. I mean, I can imagine there's really good counselors out there. There's probably some counselors and therapists out there, but if you have a really good one, they could really help you to make sense of your of you up healthy and going up learning that we can cope, we can get through this stuff, right? But growing up in a dysfunctional family, I mean, quite often we don't get that message, and we're not taught that stuff, so we have to learn it, right? I find this very interesting because I'm having to learn that people kind that's what I do. So you can write, grab the link. You can read along. Families today face a huge amount of stress, whether it's job-related stress or the arrival of a new baby. Stress takes everyone involved. And excessive, unrelenting stress puts a family at risk for. And how a family reacts to that stress is the difference between a healthy family and a dysfunctional family. So before you can understand the signs, it helps to look at the signs of a healthy family. All families. So she says here, healthy family trait. She lists these off here. Which these things I would have to read about because I don't know the thing about a healthy family trait. Because I grew up in an abusive environment where, abuse was just breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So, to see what a healthy family was, I mean, I saw some healthy families because I actually got to see what normal, healthy people interact with children and with their parents. Children interacting with their parents. To me, going through, and I actually thought it was like something out of off of a TV or something. It was interfered with health rates about health they enjoy food. There's no home. We don't what's home. So I thought about my families on challenges. So healthy family problems where they work together to solve the problems, they avoid blame, minimize stress. I mean, this is something a lot of us, out here who have survived abusive homes know that, doesn't always happen in people's homes. Quite often there is stress, people blaming each other, parents blaming each other, oh, it's your fault, or it's your fault, or you're making our lives miserable, or pointing fingers, and everybody's a mess, and nobody's getting along. Just right? You can't get through this life without stress, right? There's going to be something come up at some point that will cause some sort of upheaval, right, of the calm, and maybe there might be a peaceful time for a while, and then all of a sudden something will happen, a sickness or an illness in the family or a job loss. Any number of things, right, can happen. And so if the family doesn't know how to work together as a family, problems solve together. It can turn into really messy, ugly stuff, right, which is what I grew up in. And they said here, Celeste said, a healthy family has rules and routines, but it's also flexible. For example, a healthy family may relax. The child works better in the morning. By adapting the rules to better meet the child's needs, evening homework battles are eliminated, the child gets their homework done, and everyone's happy, right? So just kind of looking at what works for you, what works in your home. Everyone's different. So, finding out what the best solution is, and try it out. And then if it works, it's like, hey, we solved this. This is great. You know what I mean? And then she goes on to say on page 2, a healthy family knows the difference between a reaction to stress and what caused the stress. Instead of focusing on the reaction, they work to solve the problem at its cause. So they'll have to take a look and see what is the problem, and then learn how to work through it, how to solve it, instead of just pointing fingers and yelling and getting upset and everyone freaking out and, going into some sort of crisis mode, right? And she says here, is your family dysfunctional? So she says, if you're looking at the trend of healthy families and don't recognize your own, you may be wondering if you have a dysfunctional family. Dysfunctional families react to stress differently than healthy families. They may close themselves to outside help. Abuse may or may not be present. Dysfunctional family communication may be non-existent. And before diving into the characteristics of a dysfunctional family, let's explore common stressors that families face, right? So, yeah, that doesn't always necessarily mean that there would be abuse just because there's dysfunction. If dysfunction and the parents are abusive, then, it's just that much worse because no one's coping. So there tends to be a lot of abuse in that situation because there's no coping skill and, a lot of anger possibly, a lot of stress, management problems. Could be some substance abuse, not in every situation, right? Everybody's different. But, dysfunction doesn't necessarily mean abuse, but it's a hard way to grow up, right? You never really learn how to solve. You never really learn how to cope with the issues that we will face at some point, right? So she says here, causes of family stress. All families face stress, including financial concerns, relationship issues, children's behavior problems, lack of cooperation, lack of alone time as a couple, lack of time for yourself, household chores, or overscheduled activities, lack of time for playing, work problems, and guilt for not being able to do it at all. And isn't that the truth? I mean, so many people on any given day can feel like that. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't have enough time. I can't get my own stuff done. I need some quiet time. Especially parents with children that just don't have any time to themselves a lot of times. And too much work to do, too many things going on. It can all add up, right? Just family all has by and other stressors can include irrational belief systems, unresolved losses, depression, fear of intimacy, fear of losing a loved caregiver, and for people. Stuff that yeah, and it's some type of stability and knowing that they can things learn through to excess stress, such as when a member of the family has mental illness, drug or alcohol problems, fanatical religious beliefs, physical disability, emotional abuse, my dad was diagnosed borderline, and my mother was diagnosed manic depressive, right? Which called drug or alcohol did and we for our whole lives, right? So the people that are living today, that there's only a few of us left, they think it was okay. no big deal. So, it didn't matter that my mom used to, bash my dad over the head with a lamp, and it didn't matter that my dad would rape my mother. It didn't matter that my mom would beat on me or burn me or whatever. That was all fine according to my functional because it was a living day. Like, oh, okay. Whereas actually I'm seriously a child. It's not okay for parents to abuse each other physically, verbally, psychologically, emotionally, sexually in every way. That stuff is not okay, right? But sadly enough, my brother and my sister think that, it was just great, no problem, right? You know, I just know coming from this type of home, really I couldn't sit silent anymore, and that's why you're so you're more up and and that no child really should ever have to go back to help. If you're not providing a nurturing, stable, loving environment for your child, then you need to get some help. Because it's certainly not the kid's fault. You know what I mean? The parents are having problems, right? Or the parent, right? Or whoever the caregiver or guardian is. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous what people put their children through and expect them to be okay with it. Oh, well, you should be able to forgive and forget. That's what my dad says. He just had a stroke, so I mean, but he's all right. And but prior to that, at Christmas time, he left me a phone message. Oh, you should just be able to forgive and forget. And it's like, well, okay, I have forgiven, but forget, no. What they did was wrong. And you know all the ties and move on, right? Because I'm going to move on and I'm going to have a good life, right? At the end of the road, I'm the one that's going to be healthy and whole and feeling good about this type. I'm going to work it up instead of just staying in hole. They hired me down bed. She had never known a day of peace in her life, quite sad to see that, right? She was abused as a child, and I talk about a lot of this on my morning shows, one child abuse survivor to another, but it's actually really, really sad to think that somebody could spend their whole life miserable like that and end up on their deathbed miserable. And, it's like, well, hey, you did not get yourself any help, and she had every opportunity to get herself some help. When the court stepped in, when my dad was brought up on abuse charges, my mom was also brought up on abuse charges. Both of them were. And if you guys don't get help, remove the so they want to get help. They just want to continue living their dysfunctional, crazy lives and make us pay the price for it, right? And that's sad. That's very sad. So if you're doing that and you're a parent, please don't do that to your children. And if you're a person who's suffering in that situation, get yourself some help. My God, you certainly don't deserve to be treated like that. Signs of a dysfunctional family, she says here, dysfunctional families lack many of the traits of healthy families. They are often closed when it comes to getting outside help, but keep their problems to themselves. Firm limits between parent and child may not be present. Rules may be non-existent in a dysfunctional family or swing to the extreme with rigid, inflexible rules and mandatory compliance. And that's just the case. I mean, I get up until in the morning, and nothing would be said, and I could come in, no problem, kind of thinking, oh God, I'm going to get it when I get in. Then nothing would be said. But then if I had a certain look on my face 2 weeks later, I'd be beaten and clubbed for it, see. So there was no real consistency. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, you can do this, but if you have a look on your face, we're going to kill you. So that's my parents. The scope of a particular problem, Blame is plentiful in a dysfunctional family, and rather than dealing with the stress that is causing problems, dysfunctional families lash out at each other, and that's what we, like my family, is still doing this today, right? Blame and lashing out, even though like I'm blaming, putting the blame where it went, which is to my dad, right? I don't go throw it in his face like every day, you know what I mean? It's just the fact that his behavior toward me has never changed. It never will. He's 88 years old, and he still treats me with the same disregard and disrespect as he always has, and still threatens to beat me up physically, even though he's 88 years old. And what's he going to do? You know what I mean? It's kind of ridiculous that he thinks that he should still be allowed to say these hurtful things and do these hurtful things. Going to have anything to do with them, but that's because my sister and my bro actually, go along right to his sickness, his illness, right? And I refuse to. Right now, I've put my foot down, and enough is enough. You know what I mean? So I've decided that that's enough. I've had enough. I'm not playing that role anymore, and I refuse to take any more abuse. I don't care whether he's 88 or 288. It makes no difference to me. It's not a matter of respect. It's a matter of how long are you going to allow someone to abuse you, right? And I put my foot down. I said, no, enough is enough. I don't care whether you're 88 or 48. I've had enough abuse from this man, and that's all there is to it. But it's very, very sad because, it's like blame, My parents used to blame each other, really, when we were growing up. My mom would say to us, all the kids, oh, it's just your dad. It's all your dad's fault. He's the one that causes all the problems in the family. Of course, my dad would say the same thing about my mom. Oh, your mom, she's just crazy. And that's why she hurts you. She's crazy. And, well, my dad was my abuser, too, but he would always try to make it look like it was just my mom, right? The two of them were always doing that. They would always blame each other for everything and each other. They would never work together as a couple, and they never did. Not from when I was born. My mom was 38 when I was born, and my dad was 43. So I was the last child out of 10. 3 were stillborn, so there were 7 of us. And, they were old when I was born, old enough to be my grandparents already, right? They did not want me. I was born out of rape, right? My dad forced himself on my mom, and she had been doing that for 7 years prior too. So was my sister, right? But she didn't want to admit it. But that's okay. My mom used to throw it in my face all the time that I was just born out of rape. She didn't want me. She didn't love me, and therefore couldn't love me because she was miserable because of what had happened to her between my dad and her, right? And so why she kept us, I really don't know. But anyway, we were just I guess a real easy punching bag for her, right? And an easy target. So, she's around so kids would help, for their problems, parents, and learn how to cope and how to function as a couple, which my parents never did after I was born. Now, before I was born, I couldn't tell you because I wasn't around. But I'm just going with what I know from the point where I was born. Some of the what it sort of escalated as time went on, and so you could see that showing my other, but that's just the whole issue, right? Most of my family's gone, passed on, and from drug overdoses, murder, and suicide. And cancer, horrible things, that's taken my family on, and so that leaves my dad, 1 brother, and 1 sister. And, I can really kind of only go with what I know and what I saw. So, like, when I was growing up, there was no communication between my parents by the time I came along, except screaming or ignoring each other. So they were either shouting at down the role, to give time. My parents made time for each other, like to go and time together, to take our which was cool, like the fight would be on, and then my mom would say, okay, we're all going to go over for dinner to this person's house. Everybody's going to behave themselves. Everybody's going to shut up. You're all going to put a smile on your face. We're going to go over there and have dinner, and you're not going to ruin my time for me. So, of course, we'd all be happy to be going over to this family's house for dinner, right? So then we'd get home, and the fight would be on again, right? Same old stuff, and nothing changed. And so, the people, of course, they like to be around my parents. My friends, like I had some friends whose parents were my parents' friends, right? So, I liked to to their houses too and play with their daughters and stuff and hang out and stuff. And then when we were back in the car or going across the street or whatever, it would just be all back to the same old thing, back to the same old fight, And that's how we lived our lives. That's how they pulled it off, and they completely got away with it for their whole lives, right? It's kind of ridiculous. For people, there's lots of people who know, but just, they're in denial, so whatever. But there were so many people that knew what my parents were doing and knew that my parents were abusing me, especially, and, didn't care. They were like, oh, well, it's okay if we, she probably deserved it anyway, right? Well, no child deserves to be abused, right? No child, right, ever. So that's why I'm speaking out. I don't mind speaking out, and, it's my life. I can't go back and change the past, right? But I can do some good work for the future, right? And so it's really important for everybody to get involved. When I don't actually work, but I could have had when the my parents were 2 sessions because my child and because my brother went to school and he was all beaten up and he was wearing a turtleneck in the middle of summertime. I tell this story quite a bit, but it's kind of where my parents got busted, right? Thank God. But it didn't do any good because they didn't remove us out of the home. They didn't feel there was any threat to our lives, right? And so we stayed in the home. We stayed in the abuse, right? So sadly enough, my parents were told to get counseling for them and for us. We were all supposed to get family counseling, as well as my parents were supposed to get their own individual counseling because they were both abused as children themselves. And they were supposed to get marital counseling, 3 types of counseling. Well, they went to 2 sessions, and the family went to 2 sessions, right, like the kids, and that was it. And they were done. And then, they didn't go to any more sessions. And then within about a year and a half, 2 years or so, they just picked up and moved. So we moved out of the country, right, out of sight, out of mind. But we had social workers coming in, checking on us periodically. And I used to get a sucker from them because I remember I was a toddler, and I'd have to, they'd check my diaper. They'd actually make me they'd remove my clothes is what they would do and check for bruises or whatever, burns and stuff like that. And I was a toddler. I really didn't care, and I was getting a sucker out of the deal anyway. So it didn't bother me that these 2 people were coming by checking me out. I had no idea what they were doing, but I was just a little kid, and but I totally remember them coming by, and then they stopped coming by, right? And the abuse started all over again. So it's like, my parents, right, shame on them. Shame goes where the shame belongs, and that's to the abusers, always, right? So everybody should know child abuse is against the law, right? We got 2 minutes, so I'll just talk a little bit here. Child abuse is against the law. It is a punishable crime, punishable by law. We're talking physical abuse, verbal abuse, psychological abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, neglect. It's all against the law. And how anybody can sit by and not get pissed off about this. Look at the headlines that roll in. Right? We covered the headlines on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio. I was given a break here tonight by Elizabeth. Elizabeth did the show tonight. Took the show over for me tonight. I was going to be on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio tonight, but I just had some pretty heavy duty stroke. I didn't want to do my week on it, but it's just standard time. There will be one of us on there. Like Monday nights, Elizabeth Brawley and myself. Elizabeth is Southern Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. And Tuesday night, Elizabeth covers where you get to is just look around at what's happening. And if this society has got to wake up and smell the coffee. This is a crisis. It's not just, a problem, quote unquote. Kids are losing their lives, man, every day, being killed, tortured, and maimed, and sexually used and burned and tortured in every way by their parents and caregivers mainly. If you look and see, you will see that 90 to 95% of abuse really happens within the home, and it is somebody that knows the child, so it's a parent, caregiver, guardian, whoever's looking after the child, or a boyfriend or girlfriend of the parent, somebody who has to, right? Do whatever you can, right? We're out of time, but do whatever you can to be a voice in the community in your own area. Speak out, stand up, and say that child abuse is not right. You know what I mean? It's absolutely incredibly wrong, and really we need to do something to stop this, right? And it all stems from this dysfunctional family garbage and all of this stuff, this ignorant behaviors by people that think it's okay to shake a child or burn a child, rape a child, kill a child, beat a child to death, whatever, starve a child, right? Neglect a child, throw a child out in the streets, throw a kid out in the streets, right? This is all so incredibly wrong, and we all need to stand up and say so. I mean, if people aren't standing up and saying so, it's because they think it's okay. Well, that just tells you that a large portion of society actually thinks that child abuse is just fine. Why? Probably because they were not abused as children, so they don't know what it's like. And I do. So I'm willing to stand up and say, hey, what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong, and child abuse is incredibly wrong, and we have to stop it now. So have a great night, everybody. I'll be back on tomorrow morning, One Child Abuse Survivor, to another same time, same place, 6 o'clock a.m., and I hope you guys take care of yourselves. If you need something, get a hold of me on Blog Talk Radio or Facebook or whatnot. I'll be around. We'll talk to you real soon. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.